you. Hi, how are you? I can actually see some of you, which I always think is kind of fun. I want to start out by asking how many of you know Eugene Poley? Are you familiar? He died. He was 96. Don't be too sad. Huge obit in the New York Times, Chicago Tribune. Eugene said that of his invention, the flush toilet may have been the most civilized invention ever devised, but mine was the next most important. It's almost as important as sex. Eugene had a healthy self-esteem, as you can see by his words. But I was just wondering if you know what he invented. You all have them. You all have multiples of them. It was the remote control. You don't have to get your ass off the couch because of Eugene Poley. And I don't know if it ranks up there as next to sex, but I would say it's pretty darn important. You're probably glad that you have one. Now, the interesting thing about the remote control is not that he invented it, but what they called it. And the name that they gave it was the Flashmatic. I know you're all going, yes, I know. You call it the clicker, but he called it the Flashmatic. And while I was reading this, I thought, what a horrible name. I mean, really, how terrible. And I was getting ready to do one of the first speeches I was ever going to do on collaboration, and they want you to give a title, and everybody gives these long, mixing right and wrong, and the evidence of it. And I thought, I want a better title. I don't want to be the Flashmatic of collaboration. So I was reading the Vanity Fair, my go-to book for life and marketing. If you have any marketing issues whatsoever and you're a regular Vanity Fair reader, you have no problems because everything is solved in there. There was an article about Diner, Barry Levinson's movie in 1983, and it was the 25th anniversary or so of the movie, and they're interviewing everyone. And Daniel Stern is being interviewed about the role of Paul Reiser. Now, Paul Reiser was a comic. All the other people in the movie were actors. And his inclusion, they were a little sketchy about it. What could he possibly do? It turns out that as Modell, Paul becomes the glue that makes the movie work. He becomes the energy that made all of the other actors do a better job. And so Daniel, if you've seen the movie, remember him as Shrevey, says, and it made everybody like Foink, right on the edge of their seats. And I think that's the word, Foink. I love that word, Foink. It actually sounds like something's gonna happen, like pressure's been released, like Foink. So I am ready, and I call the guy who's here today, Bob Livingston, and I said, I would like to name my speech Foink, collaborating from the edge of your speech. Would you like to know how many hours it was before Bob called me? Oh, it was the next day. And he said, I don't know if we can use this word. It starts with an F and it ends with a K. How about boink or zoink? Would you feel better with that? He would have felt better with that. I go, you know what? Fork starts with an F and ends with a K. And I'm sure we're going to be using them at lunch. So for one day, I made it boink, then I made it zoink, and then I said, no. And this is sort of the kind of collaboration no one wants, bless your heart, sweet pea, because he did let me, in fact, keep it at Foink. Collaboration for clients has become a big non-negotiable issue, and I think many times for those of you, us, who are in a creative place, you think, oh, really not so much, I don't find it so helpful. So I would like to share with you for a minute some information about collaboration that might change your mind. If you Google and say, what's wrong with collaboration? You get 166 million answers, which tells you how hard it is to do. But then if you look how many books are on Amazon with collaboration in the title, 1,700. So it's clearly desired, but really difficult to do. So I thought, well, I'll buy the books. I'll start by reading the books. And the two that I read were Morton Hansen's Collaboration and Evan Rosen's The Culture of Collaboration. And they're fine books. I mean, if you're not sleeping, they're always good to have. They're fine books. And Morton has a lot of, it's very clienty, a lot of charts, because he's proving that collaboration has a revenue impact in your business. But the points they make are kind of normal, that you need to have the right leadership for collaboration. There are certain things you shouldn't collaborate on. You as a leader should remove the obstacles. Technology can be, So I thought there has to be more to this than that, right? So I decided to read the research documents about collaboration online, of which there are so many. If you started to look for them, everything that has been done has been researched, from heart surgery to baking bread. There is a research document on it about how collaboration plays a part. And then a very strange thing, I began to notice a strange thing as I was reading these, and it's this. It's that many of the research documents are about animals and insects and birds. And well, I got to tell you, there's a plethora of videos online that I'm sure none of you have seen. I've got one here for you today about animals and collaboration. And in fact, this is a real headline from a science magazine, that chimpanzees actually do a better job of choosing their collaboration partners than do humans. I asked a lot of the planners that we have around the world in Mondelez, I called them up and I said, I want you to tell me about collaboration. They said, well, it's kind of like love. It requires so much trust that and commitment and giving. It's really kind of a hard thing to pull off. And it's like marriage. It's very highly idealized. Everybody talks wonderful things about it, but there's like a 50% success rate, divorce rate. So they're going, a lot of it is like that. In fact, they said we would go so far to say it's a very low yield activity, that a lot of energy gets put into, quote, collaboration, and nothing good comes out the other side. And I brought you an example, and I think I've got an idea as to why. And you don't really need to see this, but you can get the idea. You can kind of get the visual idea. This is a notepad, and I don't know about where you work, but you know, the accountants are in on it. We don't have notepads anymore. You can't have a notepad. God forbid you have a note you need to write down. Don't write that down, because we're not going to make a notepad. So this was a group in the research department who had just completed, to them, a miraculous study about grocery shopping segmentation, which they knew would, change their world. Forget the cosmos. They've really cracked something here. And so they've got 7, count them, 7 different segments of grocery shopping needs. And they want everyone to know about it. And so they brightly got the right idea. Why don't we put it on a notepad? Because nobody has notepads anymore, and people will want it. And it's like a great idea, right? It's a good idea. It started in the right place. And then somebody said, well, I think maybe we need to arrange the 7 like a plate, like it's a meal, and then we'll have our own little logo, call it a table of 7. Get it? A table of 7 segmentation. Then somebody said, you know what? I don't think we should just put the segmentation names on there, because they won't get it. So let's have a little sentence. Let's put a little sentence in there that describes what the segmentation is. And then somebody else said, you know what? I think it would be good if we use the corporate colors, like the corporate palette, and put it on the plate and put them in like little squares. And then somebody says, I think we need an asterisk down here because there's some numbers in there and I want to explain like what those percentages were. And then somebody said, well, we should draw a line. We should draw a line here because we really don't want people writing on our brilliance, and so therefore they can use the lower half. And totally perverted the whole purpose of having a pad of paper. And that's why people don't like to collaborate on things, because they turn out poopy. But in actuality, most of the time, we're not really collaborating. We give it a lot of other names, brainstorming. And let me tell you, whoever said there's no such thing as a good idea was the biggest idiot that ever walked. Of course there are things as bad ideas. That's why we are not all millionaires and billionaires, because people mostly have bad ideas. Mostly that's what they have. Good ideas are hard to find. Or we think it's consensus, big deal in client world, the consensus, and that I'm going to get everybody to nod with me. I'm going to get everybody to nod. And in our place, if you ask my opinion about the color blue on the carpet and you don't take my opinion, I'm offended for life. You know, I told them I didn't think that was a good color blue. They asked me, but clearly they don't want to know. Or we have something called alignment. Do you have alignment? We run by you quickly with it, and just, you don't, I'm not actually asking you, but I would like you just to nod, and I could say, I got alignment. Or the idea of your cooperation. Warranted or not, you have grudgingly said you would go along. But if you look at how collaboration happens in other industries like science, if we were all trying to figure out how to cure a horrible disease, and we came together and somebody said, this is how much I've learned on X, if this is helpful to you, please take it. The idea as collaborating, you are still in charge of your life, think of it as polite stealing. That's a good way of thinking about it. But nonetheless, we don't want to do it. And here's part of the reason why, and part of what you can, as the creative entity and the creative partner, be of such a help to your clients. This is what the literature would tell you is sort of the do's and don'ts. And the bad environment for collaboration is a very homogeneous, everybody's the same, we all do it the same, conflict averse, we don't want to spit in your water in front of you, we'll do it when you leave the room. And isolated, like, sound familiar? Clients work on a campus where the only people you see at lunch are the people you work with, and you're all buying the same bad soup for a quarter. That's where clients live. But what collaboration experts will tell you is really terrific, that really makes it go, is an outsider view. Somebody who doesn't have your agenda. The ability to fight. The ability to have healthy debate and not be all crumbed up about it that, you know, maybe Bluebell doesn't like you today. And what Jonah Lerner calls weak networks. The fact that I know a tuba player and a guy that lays carpet and some guy who's a cartographer, in fact, makes me a better collaborator because I have all of these weak touch points of a variety of different things as opposed to everybody I know is a bricklayer and I'm a bricklayer. You live in this world, and you can bring this world to your clients and help them collaborate and see things in different ways that they don't. The little bit that we have done in terms of experimenting on collaboration, I'm sure many of you have heard of the Fly Garage, which we've done in Palermo, where we bring a very varied group of people together who are not homogeneous to work on a problem for a 10-day period. And what we've learned from that is that the mixture of people matters, that the idea ownership, the rule is you can only love your idea for 3 hours, then it goes to the next team, that everyone's creativity is enhanced, and we have curators. There are 3 curators who every night decide what work is going to go forward or not. In talking to the people who run Fly Garage, I have asked them, what is it that is the most surprising thing? And you would think the 3 things I just told you was the most surprising thing, but no. The most surprising thing, the greatest Foink, is generosity. That because they come together, and we actually have it not at anybody's office. We have a space that we've built in Palermo. It's everybody's house. It acts like a startup for 10 days. And the people who have been to it say that how people begin to interact with each other changes. And that the foundation of generosity is what makes it work so well. Adam Grant recently wrote a book. He's a 31-year-old Wharton professor called Give and Take. I don't know if any of you have read the book, but I would really suggest that you do because it is so related to creativity. He says that there are 3 types of people in the world: givers, takers, and matchers. Takers, we all know. Givers are people who will give without any hope of return, and matchers only give, I'll be nice to you now if you can do something for me later, otherwise don't bother me. He says that givers are at the very tip-top of the ladder of success. They are also at the bottom. The people at the bottom are people who can't manage their own agendas because they give everything away, they give all their time away. But people at the very top of the ladder of success are in fact givers. And he says it's because they are dominate at networking, evaluating, collaborating, and influencing. They have these skills in such abundance and are so willing to give them without return to other people that their power and their ability to influence other people grows. He writes about a lot of different people in the book, but the one person I want to really bring to your attention is George Meyer, who is the chief writer for The Simpsons. Time magazine said that this was the most important and best television series of the 20th century. George has won 7 Emmys on his own, and the program has won 27 Emmys. The people who worked for him said they had never worked for anybody like him before. There is a period of time. I want to read this to you. George never took writing credits, even though he was an idea machine. Tim Long told me people tend to come up with ideas and jealously guard them, but George would create ideas and give them to someone else and never take credit. There's a crucial stretch of The Simpsons over 10 years where he was not credited with a single joke, even though he was responsible for a huge number of them. And I ask, could you go 10 years without credit? I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could. The people who work for him said he took the worst assignments, the celebrities nobody wanted to work with, the most difficult assignments, and he would give them the easiest ones. The people who worked for him grew up and went on to be so successful on their own because of the giving that he had. Folks said that it was so remarkable. It said part of his success came from expanding the pie. The more he contributed to the success of his shows, i.e. your industry, the more success there was for the whole team to share. By doing his best to work less for less coveted guests, Myers did all of his colleagues a favor. Takers no longer felt they needed to compete with him. Matchers felt they owed him, and givers saw him as one of them. He is the perfect ECD. The perfect ECD. And when the book was covered in the New York Times, the author, Susan Dominus, said that Adam Grant proves that giving is the mother lode, that it spurred increased productivity and creativity in people around them. And in fact, Myers' personal motto were show up, work hard, be kind, and take the high road. Show up, work hard, be kind, and take the high road. And I think what I'm trying to communicate today, in other words, I want you to give until it hurts. I want you to give on such a level so that we spur creativity in the people around us and that we engage with our clients to lift up and spur their creativity and their productivity too. What that means also is that on my side of the fence, as clients, we have to do a better job of being a better client. This is not a dance with only one partner, and that we can both experience the transformational power of generosity, but only if we teach our own kids how to behave. We have gone on a piece of work within the company on how to be a great client. We are remiss if we do not train our kids what it means to be one. We had a recent leadership meeting for the 50 leaders within Mondelez, and I said to them, you would drill your eyes out with a hammer if you could hear your people talk to the agency. If you could hear what they say sometimes and how they behave in the pursuit of excellence. So we have begun a class and a lot of other things to try to understand how to do this. We interviewed also the best creative leaders around the world and planners and asked them, as well as top marketers, what the most important things are for success. And I will tell you that the marketers and the top creative people gave the same answers. It's a small group of people, but the people who are great at this know what greatness comes from. An example that we have done in the Zurich office, this is a little book about briefing and judgment, and we didn't write it. We asked our creative partners to write it, to send us their visuals and their stories of what makes a brief important and what, as a creative person, do you need to see in here. And we didn't edit anything that they wrote. We put the pictures and the words in just as they said them. We also went to, this is from Pearl Fisher, this is from Jonathan Ford. I know you can't see it. He's saying a lot of input gives me one little flower. You give me very focused input, I'll give you lots of flowers. He didn't have to write anything. But we gave this to all of our folks in Europe to let them know how important it is when they sit down to give an assignment to instill it with all of the things these creative people say that they need. As we look at the answers to the questions, of course, the best people to ask are you guys. So from your lips to our ears, these are the things that you told us, as did our key marketers, on how to get to great work. And you would think that creative directors would say, buy my ideas. But the very first thing they all said was build trust, that without the foundation of trust, great things are not possible. The second things they said was, please give me clients who know, and by that they mean experienced client. It's not Kimberly and Derek, who just got off the bus in there with all of your senior people judging your work. Just a few clients, please, not a room of 15. They said, let's start upstream. I'm really interested in when this product was created and who made it and how many years it's been around. Tell me everything. Don't assume that because I'm doing communications, I only want to talk about the brief. Brutal honesty. Tell me if you don't like it. So many agencies say this, and I see it because on the client side, they train them to be polite. They don't know how to say specifically what it is, and that's good from a client means that's not so good. You can tell when they get excited because they like move around and stuff. But you need to let them open the door and say, tell me the truth. Don't let me go home today without it, because it's a very hard thing for them to do. One of the big points in the checkpoints they had for us was clients love to say consumers are at the very center of everything we do, and they said, not so fast, you're not so good at this as you think you are. So if you want to be immersed in consumers, we are challenging you to go farther. Please, please, please bring us a sharp strategy, and as you all know, that is a difficult thing to do, but it is so appreciated by the agencies we work with. The testing, we had a lot of conversation about testing. And in many parts of the world beyond North America, testing is a way of life. It is the way business is done. It's so hard to tell them you don't have to, you don't have to. But people in those markets, creative leaders in those markets would say, test the direction, not the script, which seems to be like such a smart thing to say and such a difficult thing for us to manage. They also say respect the way we work, that agencies mold themselves very much to clients. They do. But they're saying, you know, also there are things that we need. There is time that we need. Sometimes we need a little money. Sometimes we need a little of this or that. But please understand the way we work. And finally, yes means yes. How many times have you sold something in the room, and I swear before you get out of the parking lot that yes has turned into a no? And then Kimberly calls you. And something happened, and then we were in the hallway, and we ran into Barb. Barb's not really feeling very strong about the idea. We're going to have to start that over. I will also tell you from my perspective, then confidence on your part. Not cocky, not I know everything. Mobile is at the center of everything we do when it isn't. But sheer confidence in what you do. When you, as the agency, are on your back foot, when you are desperate, when you are selling too hard, that's when brand teams back up. But if you are confident, it is so alluring to them, and it helps them say yes when you are strong and in front and not afraid to say, I think you're going down the wrong path. So be sexy and know it. And finally, I would like to say, It was so kind of you to ask me to come. This is one of my favorite quotes that I'd like to share with people who've been so generous in listening to you, from Dr. Seuss. Things may happen and often do to people as brainy and footsy as you. Thank you very much.